because he was running to get out of the building, you know, because he was afraid the thing was going to blow. All he saw, he probably couldn't even see from the flash.
We were racing flat track motorcycles at that time, and eventually we couldn't afford to do it anymore, so we started working on motorcycles.
And we were got to be known for the racing, but our core business was still street bikes.
You've got to calm all this down. There can't be all this wicked movement, and it looks cool for wow, look how fast that looks, but a really fast motorcycle, a really quick motorcycle, doesn't look cool.
It was a 1966 Harley stripped down in FL, and it was the first Harley I'd ever ridden, and that torque, it hooked me.
So today we're at Zippers Performance in Elk Ridge, Maryland, and I sat down to talk with Dan, Dave, and JK, and they've been telling me a lot of stories about how Zippers Performance got started 40 years ago.
This is Dan Fitzmars. Some of my friends call me Danny Fitzmars. 40 years ago, I signed our first lease to get into a commercial building because we were working out of a garage that Dave and I put together behind my folks' house, that we were working on motorcycles so we could feed a racing habit.
We were racing flat track motorcycles at that time, and eventually we couldn't afford to do it anymore, so we started working on motorcycles.
At this point, it's Dave and Dan. How did you get from the shed in the back of your parents' house to here?
We always met, developed relationships, and some of them, I mean, they're just friends today with people who are really smart that showed us things along the way that, you know, they were interested in our passion, and they said, well, you know, you could do this or do that, because they had a lot of experience at that time. They were much older than we were.
Right.
And, you know, that's how the relationship with Dick Hilferty began, you know, years in the early 80s with redshift cams.
Who was the one who got you interested in motorcycles, or was it something you saw, or just
liked them.
You just liked them?
Liked it, and I wanted to do more of that because it was like freedom on the road.
So across the street from where I grew up, which was in the neighborhood with Dave, a few blocks away, a local guy sold his potato chip truck route, and he invested that in to open a Harley shop in a Harley dealer in 1970 in Annapolis, Maryland. Ronnie Helms. This guy couldn't get rid of me. I mean, I had to be terrible for his kids, because I mean, there's just no way he could get rid of me, because I was just hanging around there all the time. And he probably saw how, you know, we were riding them little mini bikes at 12 years old, and how brutal we were, you know, aggressively riding them. And he talked to me about, you know, well, maybe you ought to get one of these. And so you just start saving the money.
Do you remember the price of your first Harley?
I do. That thing was $550 new in 1972. I can still remember when I used to go to the Harley shops during the summertime, you know, when I get off school and just help out down there. And I remember it was a little index card, because it was pretty simple what they sold. An XLCH, an XLH. XLCH was $22.50. Electric Start was $23.50. Super Glide was maybe $24.50. And you might add another $100, $2 more, a couple $100 more, and you got a touring model, Electric Glide.
My story was in the two-wheeled world, you know, of course, bicycles and whatnot, we all had that. But some friends of my father's built a mini bike. Dave would appreciate this. Used a McCulloch chainsaw engine. It was direct drive, and it was fast. And so that grew into everybody wanting to have a mini bike and get together on weekends riding. And it was a family thing, you know. I remember my sister rode with me. Everybody's family would get out and go to these little places where you could do circles and carry on. And from then, that's where it started. Never backed off since.
Because of the passion of motorcycles, we had no concept that working in this garage, and this shed was about 12 foot wide, originally about 18 foot long, and then we stuck with about 10 feet or something on it.
To add 10 feet.
We had to expand, right? Because all the stuff's going on. But we were doing stroker motors, hot rods, super glides, Forsters, helping people work on dirt track bikes. It really didn't matter. It was just all about that. And really what it was the marketplace telling us, that there was a demand for what we're doing. It wasn't going to be done at the dealership back then. It's just that wasn't their business model. And it became more popular than we ever imagined. But I think the thing that really put a torpedo in this whole idea, because it was really low maintenance and it was, the rent was cheap, because all it was whatever we spent to build the little garage, right? But what finished it was we were get good run motorcycles, and we'd road test them and sort them out and tune them and figure everything out. So when somebody come pick it up now, I say, now look, this is a neighborhood. People live around here. So when you leave out of here, take it real easy until you get down a couple miles down the road where it's open road, right? And they go, yeah, right, no problem. And then as soon as they get on that thing and feel that throttle, they would blast through the neighborhood. So we were done. I mean, eventually, so this led to, I'm here from the county and I'd like to talk to you. I have a complaint that you're running a business out of this little operation here. And the guy looks inside and there's motorcycles packed in there and there's engines all over the bench. And he says, you can't do that here. So in the end, we just started looking and saw an ad in the paper and saw our friend AJ, who at the time we didn't know, he was the landlord of this building. Him and his dad had committed all this money to building this building down there by the University of Maryland. And we're still friends today. I just talked to him the other day. I mean, that's 40 years ago.
And he was a motorcycle guy.
And he's a motorcycle guy.
Which is a huge help.
Yep. He agreed to let us come in and look at it, but again, like his father was very, very skeptical because he knew we didn't have no money, no business acumen. I mean, we were just kids. And he's like, you want to rent my new building and come in here and, But his dad was pretty cool. He gave us a chance.
Yes.
And we earned our keep. We were good tenants and good stewards of the property. And
How much space was that original?
I'd have said 1,200.
1,200 feet.
Because I do remember the story when how fast all this stuff grew. That it wasn't long that Dave got a welding machine and then a high frequency unit so he could weld aluminum, because people wanted us to weld up cases, put the big cylinders on. And one time I left zippers and it was about 15 foot wide and about 75, 80 foot deep. So it was like a bowling alley, right? And you can imagine when you put everything away for the night, right? There wasn't a lot of space to walk.
Yeah.
And we would work double shifts, happy to do it. We were loving the work. One night I had to leave early for something. And Dave says, well, go on, I'll be fine. I'll be back here in the back of the shop, the back of the bowling alley.
Yeah.
I'll be welding. I got all these cases to do. So I said, okay, that's fine. And I come back the next morning and the door is wide open.
Ooh.
And his truck is in the door. And I'm looking and he's asleep in the truck. And I thought, well, something's really bad happened here. And no electricity on anywhere in the building. So he was welding and he blew the welder up.
Welder blew up.
And it just like a big flash. And it blew the main breaker in the building. This thing was a complete, total meltdown. And when I got him out of the truck, I saw how bloodied up his legs were.
Oh, good.
Because he was running to get out of the building. Because he was afraid the thing was going to blow. All he saw, he probably couldn't even see from the flash.
All you saw was the fire in the welder.
He's trampling over anvils and tools and motorcycles.
I hit every foot peg.
No lights on. No, the whole place was just dark.
It's dark.
And when we took that welder apart, the entire coil package inside that welder,
Copper was melted.
melted.
Wow.
This thing blew up.
Well, we had to get AJ to turn the power back on because the rest of the tenants didn't have any power either.
I'm sure they wouldn't happy with you
Well,
guys.
landlord,
Well, they hadn't showed up yet.
no, it was pretty early in the morning.
Oh,
So, but those are just. But why did this happen? It all happened because there was people that wanted to take a Harley-Davidson. It goes back to that passion about the motorcycle. I have this Super Glide, I got this Sportster, I got this 20 mile. But I want to make it run better. I want to make it more reliable. I want to make it smoother. I want to do something, and because he has that same passion, and he has that passion, and And I was always saying, gee, I wonder why the dealer doesn't do it. But at the time, I didn't understand. The dealer's busy. They're selling new bikes, selling used bikes, doing repairs, doing warranty work, selling parts and accessories. They got a lot going on inside of a dealership. So at that time, we were like, well, let's just do this. And it just grew very, very fast.
JK, how did you meet Dave and Dan?
Okay, so we talked about how you got started in the motorcycle business, and you know we're all junkies when it comes to this stuff, and it can be expensive. You know, if you like messing with things and modifications and racing and whatever.
Mistakes.
Mistakes.
Right.
So, you know, back then I evolved into, with some friends, we were racing motorcycles and off-road stuff, and of course you need to be able to support that because it's kind of pricey. One of my first jobs was in a small dirt bike shop. It was a part-time business for a couple of school teachers that were filling their summertime with, you know, feeding their habit. One of our customers at the dirt bike shop I was working at had a business, and it was a music business that he and his father ran.
Oh, yeah.
And so I needed a job. The fellow I was working for said, I know a guy who might be able to use you. So he made the connection. I ended up going to work for these other guys. And they had a very successful musical instrument business in around the Washington, D.C. area. They had 7 stores.
Wow.
And so I worked in a little warehouse area there, packing orders that would go to the different stores and whatnot. And the short period I worked there, 2-3 years, they started a mail order business. And it went from one guy who did everything, including catalog work and answering the phones and packing the orders and shipping out, to, in a 2-year period, a crew of about 8 or 9 people answering the phones, taking orders, shipping, and you know, they saw the catalog. The initial printing of the catalog was like 2,000 copies, and when I left 2 years later, it was like 50,000 copies. So it grew really fast. Really opened my eyes to how big your market can be when you're not limited by your local area. At the same time, of course, I'm still riding my motorcycles and playing around, and I had a chance to take a ride on a friend of mine's bike. It was a 1966 Harley stripped down in FL, and it was the first Harley I'd ever ridden, and that torque, it hooked me. I said, this is fun. I like this. This is kind of, I'd like to have one of these. So I saved my money with the help of a loan from my wife. I bought my first motorcycle, Harley. It was a 72 FL shovel head, and it was, I don't even know how it ran. It ran, but it was pretty wore out. So again, at that time I was working in another motorcycle shop, and was able to buy parts at a discount. And I remember you telling me years ago, you don't spend any less money, you just buy more when you have a better deal. Yeah, which is totally true. So I started collecting parts to rebuild this bike, do a ground up restoration on it. But when it came time to doing the bottom end, top end work, transmission work, I didn't have the facilities to do that or the knowledge. So
Somebody must have told you about us.
it was Thrasher.
Oh, it was Thrasher?
Yeah, I talked to one of the local hot shoes about building my engine. He was going through some life changes at his time, and he said, well, he says, I don't think I can do that for you. He says, you just go down there and talk to Dan and David Zippers. So I did. I went down there to College Park with the first
Probably
commercial
82,
building.
83.
It was the summer, or yeah, end of 80, it was the fall of 83.
Yep.
They did the engine, short block, transmission work, rebuilt the heads and whatnot, and I put the top end back together and built the whole motorcycle. It turned out really nice. I was very, very happy with it. And at that point, they had reached breaking point on the size of the building they were in, and the location of it was in an industrial area. They wanted to be able to expand more, to go into a little more retail, do some walk-in business. So they worked on moving to the second location, which was located on US Route 1 in Laurel, Maryland. We became really good friends. You know, we're all cut from the same cloth, so to speak. Once they had gotten moved into the Laurel location, they expanded. I think it was 3,600 square feet.
About that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was. With a storefront, little parts room area, bigger machine shop area, and we struck a deal where I first came up part-time and worked here part-time, and then full-time, I think, in April of 1984. From there, you know, we were doing pretty well locally, but I remembered what I learned in the music business about how you could expand with do a catalog and whatnot.
It was like was holding cards, you know, because we were thinking the local because the work was just coming.
Yeah.
And he's got these cards in his back pocket. It's like, you haven't seen what I've seen,
Yeah.
you know, about what the possibilities are. And the motorcycle business was going through a really unique time because Harley had changed ownership from AMF. It was a very, very difficult time. They almost didn't make it, you know. And the guys that took over put a lot of money into the motorcycles to develop them, to make them better. What did we get?
Yeah,
What did we get an Evo at 84?
Yeah, yeah.
So it was like another growth spurt that was like in the early 70s in the motorcycle industry where it just came back.
I remember,
so the timing,
I remember our first customer with an Evolution engine. It was Blockhead Fred with a Softail. Remember
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Cool. Yeah. During this transition, bigger place, more customers, more recognition. There was also the racing background that Dan and Dave had, and with the gas Sportster built bike. And,
So they were racing.
Dave
On and off.
Dave had been building this bike, you know, of course, they had fostered these relationships with the smartest guys in the industry about building performance Harley engines. And both these guys have always been sponges as far as taking in all that data and learning what you can learn. Dave built this engine. It was a pretty different as far as advanced as far as the size of the ports, the size of the valves, the camshafts, everything in it was outside the box a little bit thinking, you know. And I remember, you know, the first time you guys went to a national event, I think, with it, and you raised a lot of eyebrows with it. This bike
Yeah,
went
we lowered
fast.
the national record by
So-
0.6 of a second.
The Zipper's name started to become a little more famous with the performance side of things, and you know, you were going to the racetrack, setting records, winning races, and the bike. You know, there's a lot of guys that couldn't make it to the other racing an iron Sportster with the transmission made out of glass. Basically, it was a lot of guys never got the other end of the racetrack. You know, not only were these things, I think that the motorcycle suffered one gear failure.
One gear failure, and we made the next round.
Yeah, and it had a spare. You know.
We had a
first
spare
gear, I think it was.
Right.
wasn't it?
First gear.
Yep.
But that meant we were reliable.
Yep.
We had a reliable system that was working because we really didn't want to see how bright we could burn the candle and how quickly it could burn out.
Right.
We wanted a bright flame with a reliable pathway,
Yeah.
which is really the same way that you look at all the professionals that work at Zippers today. They all live that mantra, you know.
That's right.
So again, back then we were got to be known for the racing, but our core business was still street bikes and building engines for, you know, performance engines for street bikes, which I remember that's kind of an oxymoron, a performance Harley-Davidson back then, but you know, you could make them go.
Yeah.
Of course, going to the races, you'd have people that were looking around, wondering what you guys are all about, and I thought, well, it's time to let's build a little racetrack display of showcasing some of the products and things that we did. So we would take whatever we could cram in the truck.
Remember you had the aluminum frames. with
I
the
still have them
board,
downstairs.
Had the same colors on it,
Yeah,
right?
same color thing. all
And
good.
it was pretty cool because the race bikes got enormous amounts of attention. And I knew that his plan had hit home when you know, because we're busy at the track and he's busy working the tent, right? He's got the tent there and he's got all these parts laid out and whatever. And when it was in Atco, we were there one time and I said, you know, it was Justin Valves or something between rounds. And I said, Dave, look over my shoulder. I said, he's done hit a home run because he had more people in the tent, right, looking at all the stuff than there were people looking at the hot rods, which proved you that that was, again, a market need that was being fulfilled.
Yeah.
Because people were hungry for how do we make my motorcycle better, how do we make it more reliable, how do we make it smoother, how do we make it faster, or all the of them in one bundle. And he's back there, you know, got all of these various parts and configurations back then, which kind of led to more discussions about the kids, which probably led to the Hot Rod 80 back in, what, 1989 or something like that? 80.
So see, back then, of course, there was no internet, so the only real way you had to get your message out was magazine advertising, which we couldn't afford. It was
Print a
expensive.
catalog.
Or you print a catalog or flyers on your
Postcard.
on your products and whatnot. So we put together, I think it was one winter, we worked on it all winter. It was our first catalog. I think it was 24 pages. with engine parts and hot rod things and stuff that we've done and services that we offered. We sent press releases for this catalog around to anybody that would take it. And Cycle Magazine printed a press release on the catalog, and we started to get mail. You know,
Oh, wow.
People looking for this thing, and that was a big deal for us.
Yes, it was.
You had race bikes, but you were selling parts to just the Harley-Davidson owners who wanted to make their street bikes fast as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. If you want to sell parts to a racer, you're not going to make a lot of money.
And you're not gonna make a lot of parts. But
Yeah.
we did that too, but it was just, that was a niche to that part of the
There's a
business.
whole lot more guys riding road bikes than there are race bikes. So,
Right,
you know,
that's
it's,
true, that's true. Now,
I think with racing, it ebbs and flows, an enormous amount of work. But we were willing to do it because, like JK said, we were just so interested in the development of it, because we always believed, I think at the point, the way he had described that, now we kept believing if we keep racing and we keep learning, we can keep making product better.
right,
And then product will lead to kits, and kits lead to better recipes, and better recipes mean to more people can use it and be able to enjoy the benefit of that if they understand, we can articulate that vision.
right.
This would have been our pre-NHRA motorcycle here. And a lot of guys ask about that because by the mid-90s, the NHRA was trying to figure out ways to get the Harleys racing in the Pro Stock class. And we couldn't do this with these older engines because the engines were too small. Everything was based on the Harley original engine base.
and the limit was there. You found the limit on the transmission. You found the limit on a lot
Everything.
of things.
But we decided at that time, between the growth of the business and the enormous investment that it would take to jump into the NHRA, and probably have to generate, and it's, as it turned out, it was probably about 2 or maybe 3 engine platforms, wasn't it? So we decided that it was in the best interest of the company, the people that work in the company, our families, that we not pursue that, because moving in this facility and expanding into the manufacturing business, that's like he said earlier, it took a while, right?
Yeah.
Now we're into the mid-90s.
And remember, in the earlier days, we moved 4 times.
This is our 4th facility.
Four times. And moving a business as it grows is expensive, time-consuming, basically starting over. So we've been in this facility now for what, 24 years, 25?
Yeah.
So
And you went from, you said 12 by, what?
1,200 to 36, actually 4,800, because when we added the cam.
Yeah, right,
grinders,
right,
we
right,
moved
right.
Grinders into another unit.
So how big is this building here?
This building, well, we're occupying about 20,000 square feet
And it's
inside this
busting at the
building.
seams now.
Yeah, and we could use more space. There was a lot going on. The growth of the business, you've picked up a lot of debt, moving into this big facility, and basically rehabbing it from start to finish. And so it took a lot of. There was no time to go racing anymore.
Oh, okay.
There just wasn't time.
So you make some racing parts and you stay connected with people that do, and you contribute any way that you can, which is kind of cool about racing, because even if you just go to the track and help somebody, or Adam designs a camshaft that's designed relative to something that they need, that's a great way to contribute, but you don't have to have a full-fledged effort.
Then you got, and this guy here too, Dave sees things. He's like when they talked about Dale Earnhardt being able to see the air, and how he could drive faster than anybody else. Well, Dave's kind of like that, and he sees things in a way a bike reacts, what it's doing, that most people just wouldn't even see it. But he'll see something that you never would have thought of when a bike launches or leaves, and how the chassis reacted. So this is a big, huge reason for the successes. I can remember when that red bike was built, it wasn't red at the time, it had the same livery colors on it that this bike had.
It had no paint on it.
Which I had
Yeah, your sticker.
You had to put the stickers on
colored
it.
tape.
Yeah, your sticker.
But that bike set a record first time it went down the track.
Wow.
Very first
Do
time.
you remember the record?
Yeah, it's right there on the front of that magazine. It says brand new record setter. What was it?
8707. Yeah,
On that? Yeah.
yeah. It's on this side.
On this side.
But, and that's true, because when you go back to the history of the Iron Sportster, some of our peers that we were racing with were breaking transmissions. Some of my guy. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And what goes back to what JK was saying, Dave would study the motorcycle without a camera. It was eyeball.
No computers.
He would study it,
None of that.
and he would see how it would move. And if he saw improper movement or some violent reaction to when the clutch was thrown and the tire started spinning, that he would adjust the motorcycle, he would adjust the chassis, he would adjust various things so that it tamed all that down. And then when we started selling them transmissions, I remember Mac tearing all those things up, and Dave was trying to explain to him that you've got to calm all this down. There can't be all this wicked movement, and it looks cool for wow, look how fast that looks, but a really fast motorcycle, a really quick motorcycle, doesn't look quick. It looks kind of dull,
Smooth.
and then you just see the number on the board, right? And you don't break parts because you got everything working right. Same with if you go to track today, 2021, and you go watch a car that's really fast or a motorcycle that's really fast. The ones that are the quickest are the ones that are the smoothest. We try to help every customer with the experience that we have. And we've spent an enormous amount of money on capital equipment so that we can produce good parts, and the consistency of those parts are there. And the professionals that work on the floor every day, you know, they're all equipped with what they need to get their job done, because we want to make sure every customer's experience is a good one. You know, we're not perfect, but we try to do that as much as we can. That's why we're in business.
We could talk for hours and hours and hours about the different things that we've experienced in that 40 years.
Yeah.
But to get to where we are now, you just put your head down every day, and you come in and you just hit it. You just go.
And then I have another question for each one of you, and we can end this. So with you guys knowing what you know now, what would you have told your younger self 40 years ago?
Just put your head down and solve the problems that's in front of you. That's what you do. You solve the problem that you're working.
That's
Your life is going to be solving problems. That's what you're going to do.
That's a really good question,
Uh-huh.
and I got to think about that for a little bit.
It's not a path. It's a journey.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure you ever get to the destination. You know, you're just working towards that, but it's a lot of hard work. If somebody's reading this thing right now and you're 18, 19 years old, stumbling into this, I mean, it's not going to be an easy path. It's going to be a lot of work.
Have the passion and stick with it.
That's it.
Good advice.
Dave's right. I mean, that's what makes it go. And I'll close with the thing your mother gave you, which I think is most
Spent most of my life on motorcycles, the rest I wasted.
There you go.
Yep.
Guys, hopefully you enjoyed this. You can go to zippers.com to check out the parts that they have, or give them a call, and they can help you with your Harley-Davidson motorcycle as well. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, keep gliding, and as always, have a blessed day.